Okay, so welcome. This is a logo. I don't want to say down and dirty, but if the shoe fits, it's DIY on that. So we're going to share my screen. We're going to go to Canva. And again, those of you who are logo experts, I just apologize because I know like this is so not all that is possible when it comes to building a logo. But what you want to do is you want to, here's an example of one that I did. Basically, a logo for iTunes needs to be 1400 by 1400. This is not optional. This is not variable. iTunes will not let you have a podcast. They won't even validate your submission unless your logo is 1400 by 1400 square dimensions. Okay, so you can see what I did. Katrina didn't have a logo. I say I don't do logos, but then, you know, if someone doesn't have one and it's stopping them, I'm going to do something to help them. I love this one that I made. You can see it's the same one I made for Katrina. So I just took a picture that I felt exemplified Palo Alto. I grew up in Palo Alto. So it was tall trees with light in it, and Palo Alto means tall tree. And so really when I think of Palo Alto in my mind's eye, I still think of like these tall trees that I grew up in. And so we want to have the name pretty obvious. And then usually you should say with your name. And when I say usually, everyone's different. But if it said like Wealthy Lala podcast, and then on the bottom in smaller letters with Lori Larson, you could say that. Now, because Wealthy Lala kind of has Lori in it, it's optional really, I think, for her. When I looked at the top certain numbers of podcasts on iTunes, and I wonder if I can find that easily. What I found was that most of them had the name of the person in them. So most of the top podcasts globally do have an identifying factor like a name. So Happier with Gretchen Rubin, right? So Often blank with blank. So She Shines with Sarah Ann. You don't have to have your name. So even though I say like the top this have the name, if you wanted to just say the Candle Magician, I get that your show would have audience. So if you do want to say with Bree Price, you know, or Breanne Price, that'd be fine too. So what you want to do is when you're building your logo is you want to look at the top logos in the genre you're in iTunes. So I go to iTunes and let's see, share screen. All right. And then I look at, do you see these different logos, everybody? Can you see those? I'm sorry, Laura, you can look at this later probably. Again, square. One thing I want to warn you about that I learned the hard way is that white floats off the edges. So if possible, have like a darker or a something on the podcast surrounds. You can just see how much easier you see the yellow than you do with like Conan O'Brien with all that floating white. All right. So look at this one. This is like words. Not crazy. I also tend to go into the field that I'm in when I'm looking at top pictures because they're generally going to be warmer. So mine is always self-help. So if you look at how much warmer these are than the ones that were in just the basic top podcast. You can look at the warmer Tara Brach. Look how warm that face is. Jillian, even dude here with glasses, he's so like warm and friendly and smiling, right? Okay. Also, you can see the gamut from like how simple it is to how there's really not much that's complicated. This one's kind of complicated. Let's see. kind of complicated. That's the main thing on logo. It has to be square. It should be easy to read, so the text should be pretty big. It should be something that makes you, when you look at it, your energy should go, when your energy gives it a yes, that usually means that it's that logo will work for you. What I did for mine is I signed my name. I sent my logo guy my show, and it's my name. And then I looked at Ellen. What show did I looked at? I looked at I looked at 3 logos of shows that were actually TV shows that I liked. So I looked at Ellen. Okay, and then I looked at Queen Latifah. And then I looked at Oprah Winfrey. And those were the 3 shows that I really liked. Okay. So you see the Oprah signature. So I sent my logo guy, because I had someone design mine. Let's see. So if you look at my logo, so one of the things I do wrong is that it is white, so it falls off. So what my designer did is he took my own personal signature and then he cleaned up the font. And so this is an original font treatment with my actual name signed. So isn't that cool? I'm really blessed to have an excellent logo designer. So every time I look at it, it's my actual E, and that gives me kind of a rush. So now if a logo to you really, the only thing I'd say is, I'm getting like, what if I don't care about a logo? I'm just getting that question in my head. Then I want to say, okay, and how could it contribute to you anyways? What would it like to be to contribute to you to the highest degree possible? And then could it match the energy of the show? Yeah.
Are you recording this part, Erica?
Yes, this is being recorded as a standalone logo piece.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's about 8 minutes so far. I'll go about 2 more minutes. What other questions do you have about logo?
Have you done yours like on, oh, go ahead.
Well, mine was just going to be, has there been anything about what colors do not attract people, or is it just depending on if it matches with the energy of the host?
I'm sure they've done studies. I think all the corporates like blue.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah.
You know, mine's purple. I'm sure there's a lot of rules about not using purple, and my show wanted to be purple. I can't really explain why it chose purple. To be honest, I'm not really sure. I actually let the logo guy come up with whatever he came up with, and then I liked it. So to be honest, I didn't really like strategically think about it. I just kind of like, you know what you could do to be really fun is take 2 of your top colors, do a blind. I'll show you guys a blind. It's really fun. I think we can do this in the logo section, but it's a really fun tool. So I'm just going to put, what's one color that you might like?
Well, I like gold.
Okay. And then what's one other one? Different, very different from that.
I like fuchsia.
Okay. That's cool. That's even hard to spell. So then I take fuchsia and gold. Okay. And I just wrote them on blank pieces of paper. And so, Lori, what I'm doing now is I'm turning the pieces of paper upside down. And I'm going to take my hands like this. And I'm just going to hold them. It's hard to see. But I'm going to hold them right above the paper, a few inches. And then I'm going to get out of my head. okay? I'm not going to be in my head at all. And I'm going to say, okay, so, and I don't want to do an answer for Bree's show because Bree might want to do this for herself. But I'm just going to say, like, let's see, how can I do this then? No, I'm going to muscle check for you. And again, know that I'd like to ask anyone doing this to do this for themselves. So
Absolutely.
now I just picture my show about a year from now, okay? And so I'm going to picture the Candle Magician show a year from now. And I'm going to go into my future in my third eye. And then I'm going to ask myself to be shown the color, the dominant color that will contribute the most to the show. And I'm going to hold my hands. I'm holding my hands just loosely above the papers. And I'll just show you guys. So I'm holding my hand loosely above the paper. And I'm just going to ask, between these two colors, would one contribute more than the other? And then it's really important that we do not tell the answer, okay? Because then we're going to go into conclusion, all right? And science and stuff like that. And we're gonna just let our body show. So I'm just gonna see if my body has a reaction. Oh, I forgot. Then I mix the paper around, so I don't know which one is which. That's really important. So now I don't know which my hand is over the fuchsia and which hand is over the gold. Do you see? So now my hand's each over a piece of paper that's upside down, and I don't know which one it is. Okay? And I'm just going to say one of these like to contribute most to the show, just based on this moment right now. And I'm just going to let my hands go over that and see if I get a response. And I got fuchsia. Okay? So that's called a blind, and it's just really a fun way. Now I don't use it to like supersede my rational knowing. Like I wouldn't like a color that I didn't like, or I wouldn't like a color that didn't make my energy go up, right? Because my rational mind said gold would be better. But then my energy was just talking to the energy, and then I let that impulse my hand, and then the impulse of my hand reached down and connected with one that's more than the other for that instant in time, Brianne. So it's just that instant in time. And you can, one of the problems with using the blind tool is how you ask the question matters so much, right? So whatever you ask is actually what will be given to you as an energetic hit of what could create the most. And so it's going to be quite, like if I only said, should my show be daily, yes or no, then I'm not really saying, should it be 5 days a week, should it be 3 days a week, should it be 1 day a week, should it be, you know what I mean? Like I'm not asking all the questions. So you want to use the blinds kind of carefully. But that's just one other way to get information from your own, like, I call it like I'm getting it from remote viewing. I'm getting it from my future, and I'm pulling down what would have what's going to contribute the most. Does that help a little bit? It's kind of strange, isn't it?
No, I think it's good. I do that an awful lot myself to see where I get sparks in my hand. So I think it's good. Good.
Okay, cool. And then, so good qualities of logos: clean, not a lot of information, just exactly the right information. I like it if you can say the word podcast in it, because then if the image itself starts floating around, it will bring people to iTunes. So if you do allow the word podcast in your logo, like here's an example of someone's, let's see. So this one, you can see Mindbody TV was a Facebook thing she did, but we made it into a podcast for her. So all the designer did was add a little picture of the podcast. Do you see? See that one? I thought she did a great job too. If you look, can you guys see that one? So the word podcast in there, while being kind of light and not dominating, will give the picture an opportunity to bring people over to your show that you wouldn't have if you just had the word insight. And for Timana Garage, you wouldn't really know what it is. You wouldn't know what it was trying to get you to. As soon as you put the word podcast, then anyone who has ever, you could actually then type it in and get the recordings. So I do recommend in your logo that you do have the word or the image of podcast as part of that square image, so that that branding, as it starts being kind of shared and populated and maybe put on your pages, it can stand alone, send people to your podcast without any extra work. They don't have to work hard to figure out what that picture is. They're going to know that means that you have a show and that they can go get more from you, of you, just by looking at the picture. Okay, so that's pretty powerful. So that's my end of that recording.